Thank you very much, Annie. Excuse me. We're doing things a little bit differently today. Ernie is kind of a spectator today instead of leading the service, and we do have a guest speaker, so I'll be our MC for the day. So, first, I'd like to ask, do we have any announcements? I think everyone saw in the newsletter that we had a very sad event within the fellowship this past week, and referring to the loss of Sally McMillan, and we are so happy to have Chris with us here today. It means a lot that you were able to come here and be with us, and we really appreciate that. And Ernie, I think you would like to share some information about Sally. And while he's coming forward, we do have a flower here on our table and a candle that I'm going to light, and this is in memory and honor of Sally.
Thank you, Chris, for giving me the honor of reading this. Using the mic.
Use the mic.
Oh, use the mic. Yes. All right. Sally Hinchcliffe, am I saying that right? Hinchcliffe McMillan, 76, died peacefully August 26, 2025 at Tryon Estates, Columbus, North Carolina.
Louder.
Sally was born in Vermont, the daughter of John and Mary Hinchcliffe. Am I saying Hinchcliffe? Hinchcliffe.
Hinchcliffe. No extra C.
Okay, Hinchcliffe.
Just like it's spelled.
Easier done. Okay, she attended Arcadia University and Tufts University, where she worked in the placement office of the latter while embracing the diversity on campus of staff and students. A life-changing experience after growing up in Lexington, Maine, Massachusetts.
Birthplace of freedom.
Birthplace of freedom. She met the love of her life, John Christopher McMillan, while living and working on Hilton Head Island, where they were married on the beach in 1983 after building their first home on the May River in Bluffton, South Carolina. Am I saying that right? Bluffton. They maintained their own medical business for over 20 years, selling to hospitals and doctors in 6 southeastern states. In 1996, Chris and Sally moved to North Carolina, where they had the vision for a Unitarian fellowship and a free medical clinic in Brevard. She worked tirelessly as a founder of both the UUTC and Volunteers in Medicine, later the Free Clinic. As a resident of Sherwood Forest in Brevard for 16 years, she established the Bluebird Nest Box Trail along the golf course, fought development of green acres, advocated for stopping the use of Roundup chemicals, and introduced the concept of riparian buffers. Did I say that right? Okay, good. I'm getting there. To stabilize stream banks. As conservation chair of the Sierra Club, she collected hundreds of petition signatures to protect the land, which later became Gorges State Park. Sally was passionate about politics. We know that, don't we? And her work on Barack Obama's campaign, earning her an invitation to the White House. Together with her Quaker friend Rosemary Keller, she started weekly Saturday peace vigils in front of the courthouse that continued for 10 years. She was a frequent contributor to letters to the editor columns in the newspaper. Sports and arts were an important part of Sally's life as well. We knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Every Sunday. She loved tennis, golf, twice Sherwood Forest women's golf champion. I didn't know that. Pickleball, swimming, biking, walking, and birding. She dabbled in the arts, enjoying creating watercolors, paintings, needlework, craft, poetry, baskets, and woodworking. She received 8 awards in 2022 for her participation in the Transylvania County Senior Games in Silver Arts. 7 awards in 2024 at Polk County Silver Arts. Sally's fondest memories are of her time spent with Chris. Together they camped in their van in all 48 continuous United States and much of Canada. Sally was predeceased by her parents and her 3 brothers. She leaves behind her husband Chris and her nieces and nephews. If you wish to donate in Sally's memory, please give to Dogwood Alliance, P.O. Box 3645, Asheville. I'll leave this address for people. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Do we have any other announcements for today? Do we have any visitors? Oh, is he it?
Sally would like this. There's going to be a meeting at the Tryon Town Hall on Highgate Road, Kudzu. And it's a free meeting. It starts at 4 o'clock on the, it starts at 6 o'clock on the 4th of September. Be there.
And where?
At the Tryon Town Hall, you know, where the fire station is and across from Rogers Park.
Oh,
Okay, any other announcements? Any visitors that we need to introduce? Here, I'll give you the mic and you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Joel. My parents live here, and I'm having to have some surgeries done. So I'm staying here while I'm recovering from the surgery.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining us today. We're glad to have you. Anybody else? Okay, I think since we're slightly doing things different, let's see. Yes, we have the chalice lighting. And Kathy, you're our chalice lighting.
this is from the Mark Nepos book, The Fifth Season. As I age, little things fall away as big things become clear. I can no longer open jars or carry 2 grocery bags at once, but I can perch like an eagle on the edge of vastness at any given moment. I now walk into the kitchen and forget what I was after. But I can recite Basho's instruction to Kikuku in 1689 and enjoy their conversation. I now stop near the top of the hill because my hips burn, but I can see directly into the soul of anyone who has been loved or broken open. And I can awake in the night with a sudden fear of death, but can quiet that fear with the ancient chorus humming in the wind. It's as if my body is a nest and my soul is a bird who has waited for a lifetime for the moment it can fly away. The weight of time on our body diminishes how far we can reach and how long we can last, while the light waiting to escape from the body makes everything infinite.
Please join me. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace.
Maybe you could just imagine being older. I wandered today to the hill, Maggie, to watch the scene below. The creek and the creaking old mill, Maggie, as we used to long, long ago. Green road is gone from the hill, Maggie, where first the days is from. That creaking old mill is still, Maggie, since you and I were young. Now we are aged and gray, Maggie, the trials of life are nearly done. Let us sing of the days that are gone, Maggie, when you and I were young. Oh, they say that I'm a feeble with age, Maggie, my steps are less sprightly than then. My face is a well-written page, Maggie, and time all alone was the pen. They say we are aged and gray, Maggie, thus strayed by the white breaker's tongue. But to me you're as fair as you were, Maggie, when you and I were young. Now we are aged and gray, Maggie, the trials of life are nearly done. Let us sing of the days that are gone, Maggie, when you and I were young.
Thank you, Becky and Derek. And if you would join me, please, to the work of this fellowship, which is weaving in the tapestry of love and action we call community. We dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Okay, where is Don? Oh, right here. Sorry. He is going to introduce our speaker for today. So Don, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning. Looking around this group, I know I'm in good company when I tell you that just this morning I leaned over to tie my shoes and thought, is there anything else I could do while I'm down here? Beautiful. And I'm reminded of what my late father once said. He goes, it don't get no better. You know, wiser words were never said. We sent out a survey, or passed out a survey at the congregational meeting, and the responses had a lot of different suggestions, which we appreciated. But the board was struck by one suggestion that repeated several times, and it was about end-of-life issues. And it struck a chord, and we thought, you know, this is a good subject for us. considering the average age of our congregation is what, 50, 52? So, anyway, the point is that we decided we might have more than one speaker, but who should we get to lead off of this? Well, it was Lyndon Harris that made the suggestion that I contact Fe Avis. And Fe has actually spoken here before. And Fe, by the way, Fe is Spanish for faith. He actually changed his name, which brings me to the subject. And when I asked Fe what his background was, and he said he has a degree in physics. And he's also a Presbyterian minister. And he founded a school for children with AIDS in Honduras. And I didn't understand that until he told me that most of these children were orphans or had been abandoned. So anyway, he comes with great credentials to talk to this issue, and I'm sure you received a handout by now. If you don't have a handout, we'll get you one. In the meantime, let me introduce you to Fe Avis.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yes. If I just use this lapel mic?
So we'll just turn that on.
Okay. Good. So my name is Fe. Fe means faith in Spanish. It also means iron in chemistry. And it means trouble if you're trying to apply for something on the phone. I was trying to get in the frequent flyer program of the American Airlines a number of years ago. And what typically happens is you talk to someone, they say, "What is your name?" And I say, "It's Fe." And they say, "F-A-Y." And I'm like, "No, like Santa Fe." And they're like, silence. No, that's F-E. Oh, F-E-Y. No, like Santa Fe, F-E. And finally, you get an email confirming the conversation, "Dear F-A-Y." So anyway, this lady said, "What's your first name?" And I'm like, "Here we go." And I said, "It's Fe." And she said, "F-A-Y?" And I said, "No, like Santa Fe." I said, "F-E." She said, "F-E-Y?" And I said, "No, it's just F-E." And she says, "Oh, sir, that's a problem." And I said, "What's the problem?" She says, "My computer won't take a name that has any less than 3 letters. What letter would you like to add to your first name?" So I find our brain thinks in certain ways, and it's difficult to get it, out of that pattern to think in new ways. And so I think that's a part of what people experience when I tell them my name. So I'm here to talk about resilience. And this is going to be maybe a little bit different because when I was younger and working with youth, there's quite a bit of research on resiliency in youth. And we often think about resiliency as it relates to young people, especially with the challenges they face today, right? But I am thinking about resilience in the second half of life. And so that's what I really want to talk about today, is resilience for those of us who are on the average age of 50, as we've already said. Now, this is a talk on resilience, and there are 3 of these. This is called the glance, which means it's an introduction. The longer version is called talk, which allows us to have more conversation about resiliency factors. And then the longer one is plan, which is how do we actually create a resiliency plan. So what we're going to be talking about today is really an introduction to resiliency in the second half of life without having a lot of conversation, though we will have some. And without coming away with any concrete actions or steps, though you may come up with some small step that you can take. So what we're going to be doing this morning is talking about what is resilience for us as older adults, Why is it important as we age? What's the difference between active and passive resiliency factors? And we're going to talk about external factors, which are our connections to people and things. And then we're going to talk about the internal factors which I call habits of the heart. And these are all things that we can develop that not only help us live longer, but healthier and happier. So to begin our time together, I'd like you to turn to the person next to you and just ask this question. I need help. Will you help me? Just take turns saying to the person next to you, I need help. Will you help me? All right? Feels a little awkward, doesn't it? But give it a try.
I need help.
Will you help me?
Will you help me?
Great. Okay. Sounds like someone said yes. Congratulations, you just became a little bit more resilient. Because part of resilience is being able to ask for help when you need it. Research shows us that we habitually underestimate the willingness of people to help us, overestimate the capacity of people to ask us for help. So we often are in groups of people where folks need help, but we think, well, if they really need it, they'll ask, and they may not. And we may hold back on asking because we're afraid of how people will respond to us. Other research that's done shows that people wait to ask for help. 8% of us never ask for help. 13% of us wait till it's too late. And 50% of us wait until it's kind of a crisis before we ask for help. So we're kind of in the situation that the dean of students at Louisville Seminary described when he told the story about a person that was scuba diving. They're down about 30 or 40 feet. And they look over and there's a person swimming without scuba gear. And they're like, how does he swim without scuba gear? So he's going down, he turns, and the guy writes on a slate, how do you swim without scuba gear? And the guy comes up and he shows it to him, gives it to him. And then while he's coming back down, he has written on the slate, help me, you fool, I'm drowning. So that simple exercise and practicing helps us become more resilient. So my wife and I heard from a neighbor that these electric bikes were pretty reasonable to buy, and so we got a couple of electric bikes, and guess what? It doesn't come assembled. And I can assemble it. You know, I have a physics degree. I can assemble the bike, but I thought I could also call the neighbor and say, would you help me assemble my bike? And he said, I'd love to. As it turns out, he had a job at one point working in a bicycle shop. And he brings in all this equipment and essentially puts it together while I watch and play some music. And so, but it built a connection, right, that we have to one another. And so that simple step, I could have done it myself, but the practice of actually practicing asking someone for help was something that strengthened me. Now, it's kind of interesting. I went online. How many of you are using AI at this point?
Oh, yes.
Yeah? So I asked it to give me a sketch of one person asking another for help. Now, AI is functioning out of a data set that's kind of culturally biased. So the only kind of picture I could get it to draw was this kind.
Yes.
where there's a person who's in absolute desperation. See his big eyes, it's like, I couldn't get it to draw a picture of a person asking someone helping them put together their bicycle. You know, which is not an act of desperation, it's an act of connection, right? So there is this bias in our society that we only ask for help in times of desperation. So learning to ask for help before the crisis helps build resiliency. And this has become important to me because I have spent about 27 years doing suicide prevention work. And so I get people at the waterfall. And I think, and it started when we had 3 students in the high school, only a high school of 300 kids killed themselves in 7 months, and I was the pastor in that community. So, and then I've worked in that field for now about 27 years, on and off. And I'm like, how do we get upstream of this? So before people get to the waterfall, and now they need a helicopter. Now they need lots of support, and sometimes you can't even rescue them. By the way, part of what's happening, just for social context in that field, is the highest rates of suicide in high school are LGBTQ community, right? Do you know what's just happened to the hotline, the suicide hotline? They've removed the prompt for LGBT kids. Okay. So, there are lots of ways we can ask for help. It can be emotional, relational, spiritual, physical, medical, legal, financial, technical, and others. But learning how to do that and help people upstream when they need swimming lessons. A lot easier to teach people swimming lessons than it is getting a helicopter to save them going over a waterfall. Now, as Don mentioned, I have a degree. I'm from the Ohio State University, back before it was important to say the. I got a double major in physics and avoiding tear gas. I went between 1968 and 72, so I was there during Kent State. But you learned something about football. By the way, Ohio State did win over Texas yesterday. I would light a candle and put it there, but I don't want to waste the time. But I learned, one thing you learn about football is that the strategy for the second half of the field is different from the first half of the field. And that's true for life. The strategy for being fruitful, happy, navigating the second half is different than the first half. Now we know that in general. Some of you may remember this if you had children. That first baby, sugar-free, meat-free for the first year. And then the second one, fast food. First food is bacon dipped in Nutella, dropped on the floor by an older sibling. So the second half is different. The second half of life is different than the first. But do we think about that? And do we think enough about what do I need to do to finish my life in the second half in a way that's I'm happy, healthy, and can live as long as I can be fruitful. So when Alicia Evans works for the Council on Aging. Actually, she just moved, but she was on the Council on Aging in Henderson County where we live. And we were having coffee, and she said something to me that really struck me, because she's worked with people in crisis for a couple of decades now. And she said, when supporting aging adults facing significant life transitions, and sometimes crises, I frequently ask if they had envisioned their lives as they grew older, and again I heard the same answer, I never really thought about it. So how do we give advanced thought to this aging process? Now, can you complete this sentence? Take a licking and see you're in the right room. Because if you know the answer to that, then you're old enough to remember those Cameron Swayze commercials Or they would take that poor Timex watch and have elephants stomp on it and put it on propellers of boats and all kinds of other tortures. And it would keep on ticking. So this is kind of why I've named this Keep On Ticking. So what is resilience? Resilience is the developed capacity to withstand adversity, bounce back from inevitable challenges, and maintain a zest for living. It's not, in the way we're talking about it, it's not only some people are resilient and others are not. It's not rugged individualism. In fact, if you are a rugged individual, you will probably not do very well as you age. It's not a naive expectation that somehow we can, we just have the right diet and the right exercise. We can avoid all the challenges that come with aging. And it's not usually developed quickly without effort. You have to do something. So what is it? It's something we develop like a muscle, and we have to practice it. We have to kind of decide that we're going to become more resilient. It's focused on things we can control. There's lots we can't control. But what can we control, and what can we do? It faces the future with confidence, and it's developed in advance of when we need it. Swimming lessons, upstream, wherever possible. So, you remember something happened about a year ago called Hurricane Helene. And since then, there have been a number of really good efforts to help people develop disaster plans. I don't know what's happened in this county, but like in Transylvania County, we went to an excellent presentation on what we each need to do to respond to a disaster. So we need to have that stay bag, and we need to have that to-go bag. We need to take those steps. Disaster planning is something you do in advance. We have to take action. It's usually short-term. I know some people are still dealing with it, but for most of us, it was a couple of weeks or so of not having power, water, etc. We focus on physical health and safety, and there's a relatively small number of unlikely events with catastrophic community-wide effects. And we want to have a plan to deal with that. When we talk about resilience planning, it's a little different. I went online and did the Google search for what's the average age at which your father dies. It's 49. What's the average age at which your mother dies? What's the average age of menopause? What's the average age of empty nest? What's the average age of retirement, running out of money? And I just put it on a timeline. And these are the kinds of things that hit us inevitably, but we don't know when or how. And so we can't have a plan for it, like you have a disaster plan for a few things that might happen. December 1st, 2014, I got a call that my son Michael had attempted suicide. I was in the hospital at Ohio State University. We were living in Greenville, South Carolina, got in the car, drove to Columbus, spent some time with him, got him out of the hospital, got him situated. We're driving home that next weekend. It's around December the 7th. We stop in Gatlinburg to kind of take a breath. And that very night, we got a phone call from the sheriff's department in Henderson County. My wife, Sean's back in the corner. Her sister had been killed by her own son in Hendersonville. 2 years later, my sister, who had early onset dementia at 66 years of age, walked out of her home, was hit by a truck and killed instantly. You cannot plan for these things. In fact, if you do plan for them, you have a diagnosable mental condition called catastrophizing, right? You can't spend your life thinking, oh, what if my son attempts suicide? Oh, what if my sister-in-law is killed? Oh, what if my sister walks out and is killed? What, you pick it, and I'm not alone. You all have these kinds of things that happen. You cannot plan, you cannot have a disaster plan for exactly how these things are going to happen, except to know they are. So the question for resiliency is not what if, it's how strong. How strong do I need to be? How strong can I develop my life that I can deal with whatever comes down the pike? As hard as it's going to be. Because I can tell you, if I hadn't had my faith, my flexibility, my wife, my friends, I can name other things, I wouldn't have made it. And you could all say the same, I'm sure. So, let's talk a little bit about factors that help us be more resilient. Just watching the time. You know, I've never seen a clock in a church before. Most pastors don't want that. They don't want you to know what time it is, you know what I mean? Okay, so, but I'm glad that's it. So there are active resiliency factors. There are things that we can do that make us more resilient, but there are steps that we have to take. And I'm going to talk about those in some more detail in a moment. And they're the external connections that we have to people and things, and the internal kind of habits of the heart that we have developed. Now again, I'll talk about those more in a moment. I call those the seat belt of later life. You've got to put your seat belt on. You can't wait until, oh, I think I'm going to have an accident. Better put the seat belt on. You have to put it on in advance. Now there are also, does this go backwards?
You do the minute, you don't go backwards. Other direction.
Okay. There are passive resiliency factors. And these are like airbags. You don't have to do anything. They're kind of there. Does anyone know why airbags were developed? Because people wouldn't wear seatbelts. Seatbelts were first developed by Nash in the 40s. He equipped about 42,000 cars with seatbelts. Shipped them out to the dealers, and the dealers said, please don't put seatbelts in the cars. We have to take them all out. Our customers want the seatbelts taken out. Wow. I started driving in 1966. I was born in 1950, and at that time, my family's from Appalachia. At that time, there were three kinds of men, and they were men: Chevy men, Ford men, and I want to be thrown clear men, who didn't put seatbelts on. And my father was, I want to be thrown clear man. So one of the first big arguments we had was when he got in the car, because I'd been through driver's ed, and I'd been told, you don't start driving until my father refused to put a seatbelt on. It reminds me of the story of Muhammad Ali. He was on a plane. Flight attendant said to him, sir, you put your seatbelt on. Muhammad Ali said, Superman don't need no seatbelt. And the flight attendant said, Superman don't need no plane. So airbags were developed and finally brought to the market. There was an invention in, I think, the 1960s where they actually could get this chemical explosion fast enough that would actually, intercept you when you're heading toward the dashboard. But in 1970, only 14% of people were wearing the seatbelts in their car. So, what are the passive resiliency factors that are working for us? Can be our genetic inheritance, can be demographic in terms of our race, our gender, our ethnicity, this kind of privilege that we have. Can be legacy, conveyed advantages. Did you inherit money? Can be your family network of children, grandchildren, siblings, and your social safety net in the society as a whole. But guess what's happening to some of these? They're beginning to recede. So when you had me here 3 years ago, do you remember what I talked about? Parental estrangement. Today, a large number of parents are seeing their children go no contact with them. So they don't have the support that previous generations may have from their children. 22% of older adults today over the age of 65 are going to be, and many folks don't like this term, elder orphans, which means they're going to have no family to really help take care of them. When it comes to the social safety net, resources are being cut that help take care of older adults. And those are only going to grow as we go down the line with the big, beautiful bill kicking in 2027, unfortunately. Now, I don't know what it's like in Henderson, in this county, but in Henderson County, we've got an 8 to 9 month wait for Meals on Wheels. And resources are anticipated to be cut. 50% of folks over 75 are on Medicaid today. 2/3 over the age of 85 are on Medicaid. So we're going to have to take care of each other in ways that we have not had to do that before. And thinking about resilience is a part of what I think we're going to need to do. Whoops. So I want to talk about these two things relatively quickly. I like this song by James Taylor. I got two good friends on my left and my right. So on the one side is our connections to people and things, and on the other side are the habits of the heart that we have developed. These are things that help keep us resilient. I want to talk about those. First, the connections. Now we use the analogy of a foundation. Foundations are generally hidden, except in the mountains when you can walk around the back of the house, I've learned. In Ohio, they're hidden, central Ohio. So what are some of the things that hold up our life, hold up our life that are external? There are things like pets, nature, hobbies, volunteering, family, friends, work, responsibilities, religion, exercise, and home. There is research on every one of these things about the value that they bring to our lives in terms of helping us live longer, happier, healthier lives. I don't have time to go into the research, but let me just take one. We don't have enough friends. The research says, we need 4 or 5 friends to be okay in the long term. 30% of us have less than 3 friends. I talk to chaplains in hospitals who say patients are having surgeries with no one to visit them. So developing friendships is one of the most important things we can do in order to be more resilient. Now, I don't know about you, but I was 44 years old, and I was a pastor, which makes it hard, but 44 years old when I realized I do not have a friend. I don't have a single friend. I got a big congregation, but I don't have a single friend. So then I start thinking and reading and researching, what is a friend? What makes a friendship? And I don't have time to talk about what I found. But each of these has research, and there are things that you can look up online to see how our lives become more resilient when we actually intentionally start investing and practicing some of these things. Unfortunately, it doesn't come assembled. I like this, the log falling out of the box, out of the bottom of the box. That's like the bicycle. That's like putting the bicycle together. So it doesn't come assembled. And most institutions today are not helping older adults develop resiliency plans. So we're kind of on our own, except I'm hoping that communities like yours will begin to actually encourage one another and help one another, put plans in place, and check in with one another. Why is this important? Because if your life is sitting on a couple of these pillars and they go, then you're in trouble. So, you know, I look at this one and I think of Bob. Bob's 55 years old. He's got a wife, children, his home, and he's a lawyer. His identity is tied up in his work, but then he retires, and then he loses his wife and his children are gone. And now he's in trouble. Or you think about a woman. Where are the highest suicide rates for women? What age? Anyone know? 50. What's happening to a woman around 50 years of age? What's that? Menopause? What else?
Empty nest.
Empty nest? What else often? Divorce? Yeah. We're starting to lose our looks. I started losing mine at 50 or 25. But we started losing our looks. And so there's a big identity crisis when these pillars get hit. And this is where we want to get upstream and want to work with people and say, you know, make sure that you are building your foundation and developing your inner life in a way so that when these things happen, and they are going to happen, you have the resources to bounce back from those losses. Highest rate of suicide for men, by the way, 75. Suicide rates for men at 80, 4 times that of teenagers. But we're not talking about that. And that is a form of ageism, folks. Okay. So, building your connection resilience, pick one and work on it. This one says nature or pet. These are things you can strengthen or add to make you more resilient. Now we're going to turn our attention for 4 minutes to the internal things. These are inner perspectives that you've developed over time. And again, all of these are researched. We know that spirituality, self-compassion, forgiveness, flexibility, and being able to retell your story in a positive way are all internal habits and skills that we can develop that make us live longer, happier, healthier lives. You can add one like gratitude, another researched practice, internal practice that makes us healthier and happier. On the re-story, it's telling your story in a positive way. So let me tell you about my son Michael. I lost my son Michael 3 years ago to a drug overdose, 34 years of age. But let me tell you something that happened. Last time I was here, I talked about estrangement. I was estranged from my son. 3 months in February of 2021, he got in touch with me. And he had hit bottom. And just about every day I communicated with him. And just about every day I told him I loved him. And he got to know me and I got to know him. But then I got the call on May 26th that he was gone. But you know what? I am so grateful that I had 3 months with my son. He got to know who I was. I got to know who he was. And I got to tell him I loved him every day. That's how I retell that story. And that's a part of what helps keep me okay. And you know what? I really believe it deep inside. So how do we tell our story? That's a pattern of thinking. So that's a quick kind of overview of resilience, kind of what it is, the kind of passive things that help keep us okay, but then the steps we need to take, the seatbelt we need and can put on, the external connections that keep us okay, and the internal habits of the heart that we develop. Being a part of a group like this, a faith community, is a part of how we are connected to one another and develop an internal spirit. Thank you for that reading. That was lovely. So, you are more than your body and more than your physical brain. I really believe this. You are more than your most soaring achievement and more than your most painful regret. I face the future. I had a sister with the early onset dementia. My mother died of dementia. That may be my future too. But I'll tell you this, I am more than my brain. And after my sister was killed in November of 2016, I was on a retreat in Connecticut. And I had a mystical experience where I saw her, communicated with her, and got to say goodbye. She's more than her brain. I'm more than my brain. And one of the things that encourages me is something called terminal lucidity. Have you heard of it? It's where people who for months or even years have lost all capacity to communicate due to dementia, Alzheimer's, due to an injury, an accident, or a tumor. And then suddenly in the last 24 hours of their lives, they communicate with perfect lucidity to the people around them. It's like once the brain is finally able to let go, they are able to talk and communicate. And you know what? Someday I may be gone to dementia, but I'm going to be back there as a person. I will be there, and you will too. So, I love this by Rumi. You are not a drop in the ocean. You're an entire ocean in a single drop. So, you know, only 14% of folks used seatbelts in 1970. If you can take a 14% step from today to become a little bit more resilient, I'll be a happy man. Bless you. I can answer questions. I don't want to take a lot of time. Your time. Yes.
How did you make your friend?
Huh?
You said you discovered you were without friends?
Yeah.
And you...
So, because I wouldn't let myself have friends, because it's difficult as a pastor. So one was letting myself do that. The other was I read a little book, and it was on therapies of various kinds and how they integrated to theology, all of which I forget except 2 pages. And the 2 pages were, here are the 4 elements of a friendship. Mutuality, commitment, authenticity, and gratitude. And those kind of became the harbor lights that guide me on relationships. Are we both kind of carrying the relationship, or am I having to carry it all? Am I always the one making the calls? So is there mutuality? Are we committed to the relationship? And so I take friendship very seriously. I have friends around the country, and for a number of them, we have a regular time on the calendar. We're not going to just let time go by and then suddenly in 2 years, wow, it's been 2 years since we talked. So it's like on Tuesday, I got a call with a friend in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We have it the first Tuesday of every month at 10:30 in the morning, and we're committed to that. So commitment, authenticity, talking about real stuff. You know, the real stuff.
Repeat the 4.
Yeah, the 4 are mutuality, commitment, authenticity, talking about meaningful stuff, and then gratitude, letting my friend know how grateful I am that they're in my life. And by the way, one of my best friends is Lyndon Harris. I think some of you know him. He's a precious, precious friend to me. Okay, blessings, yes.
I think one of the steps, part of this, for me, is honesty.
Yes.
It's so typical of all of us to say, when you ask me, how are you? I'll say fine.
Yeah.
But I don't do that. If you ask me how I am, I can either say, yeah, I am fine, and I'm honestly saying that,
Yeah.
or no, I'm not fine, whatever happens.
Yeah.
And it really opens me up and opens them up and creates
Yeah.
a real good relationship.
So that's the authenticity piece, right? It's like we're talking about real stuff. And one of the things I really appreciate about the time with you this morning is you're doing that. You know, I hear you talking about real things, and as Nick is saying, you know, to be able to talk honestly about how you're really doing is really a part of being in a relationship and being authentic. So, wonderful. Yes?
I just wanted, there's a podcast called To the Best of Our Knowledge, and I was just hearing just a part of it as I drove up today, and she's interviewing someone who was, I can't remember where she's from, but anyway, Palestinian or something, and she is also a neuroscientist. And there's this recent study that if you learn piano, the study was for 2 months, practice piano for 2 months, like with lessons, that it changes your brain. Like
Yes.
It improves, so you're not developing dementia.
So if you weren't able to hear that, there's a podcast that has shown, research has shown that if you can play the piano for a couple of months, that it actually helps the brain protect itself to some degree against dementia. The brain is, you know, there's more plasticity in our brain than we certainly realized 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Our brain can continue to grow, develop. You are? Okay. There you go. I think I'm done.
Thank you, Faye. I think that was one of the more significant popping sounds that we've had. And now we'll finish with our closing music. Thank you, Derek.
There's a dark and troubled side of life. There's a bright and sunny side too. Though we meet with the darkness and strife, the sunny side we also make do. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day, it will brighten all the way, if we keep on the sunny side of life. Comes storm and it's weary world today, rushing woes that we cherish so dear. Clouds and storms will in time pass away, the sun again will shine bright and clear. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day, it will brighten all the way. Keep on the sunny side of life. Last 2 lines. It will help us every day, it will brighten all the way, if we keep on the sunny side of life.
Thank you again, Becky and Derek, and thank you, Faye. Just to give y'all a little bit of info as we move forward in this fiscal year of 25-26 for the fellowship. On the 5th Sundays, we will be addressing these issues that came up with our congregational survey. So we will be dealing some more with some of the end-of-life issues that people indicated they wanted to hear about. But thank you, Don and Anita, for your work getting us started on this, and Faye, thank you so much for your willingness to come and share your information with us. And now we will extinguish our chalice. If you'll join me. We extinguish the flame of this chalice. Let us follow the light of truth until we meet again. And if everyone would stand, we will finish with our final song. And let's make a connection with someone. We'll hold hands as we finish. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life shape of justice, roots hold me close, wings set me free, Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Thank you, everyone. And don't forget, we have a service next Sunday. That will be our first Sunday for September. And we have some lovely refreshments over here. Zia, thank you for bringing those. Thank you for Jeannie being our reader and Kathy being our chalice leader. So everyone have a great day and go Gamecocks.